Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk to you guys all about core knowledge. Let's get into it. If you're new here, my name is Kaela. I am a second generation homeschool mom to almost 4 girls. My 4th baby girl is due in just a couple of weeks. I am currently homeschooling my 4th grader and my 1st grader, and we have homeschooled from the very beginning. I love to share mainly secular and faith neutral resources and curricula on this channel. And I also just love to chat about our personal homeschool journey and mama life. So if any of that interests you, I hope that you will consider subscribing and sticking around. Today's video is actually one that is highly requested. I have mentioned in numerous videos over the past couple of years and on my Instagram how we pull resources from core knowledge. And so many of you want to know more about core knowledge. I know that it can seem very overwhelming if you are not familiar with it. I was extremely overwhelmed by everything that core knowledge offers, all of the ins and outs of their website, how you download units, just how it all works in general. There are so many different ways you can use resources from core knowledge in your homeschool. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you kind of a general overview. We're going to look at the website together, chat a little bit about what core knowledge is, what they offer, and then I'm going to show you ways that I have personally used resources from core knowledge. Okay, so first of all, their website is coreknowledge.org. And they have actually just completely redone their website. And I have to say, wow, it is really, really improved on what it was before. I think they've gotten a lot of complaints because the website was kind of dated. It was not the most user-friendly. So they've gone in and made a lot of changes, and I really can appreciate the difference. So if you're not familiar, Core Knowledge offers completely free downloadable curricula, and then they also sell printed books, printed copies of their curricula. All of the resources from Core Knowledge are designed for public school. So keep that in mind. It is not a program that is designed for homeschooling. And so using resources from Core Knowledge as a homeschool family, we do have to modify things because it's not written or scheduled or designed for a family. It is very much designed for a teacher and for a classroom environment. If you want to know more about Core Knowledge as a nonprofit organization or the origins of Core Knowledge, they have all of that laid out really well on their website. You can take a look at that. I really appreciated this page that they set up called Our Approach. It kind of summarizes the curriculum really well. So it is specific and sequenced. There's a lot of hand-holding in all the resources that I've seen from Core Knowledge. They really don't leave any guesswork for teachers, or in my case, for a parent that's using this. They tell you exactly what to do and exactly what to say. They have very clearly outlined learning objectives and goals for each grade level, for each subject, for each unit within each subject. So if you can't already tell, this is kind of a traditional style curricula. And so that might not be the best fit for every homeschool family, but if you are looking for something that is free and has fantastic content, then look no further, because I really feel like there's just a wealth of goodness here for the taking that we can use and modify for our homeschool needs. So I definitely encourage you, if you are unsure whether or not Core Knowledge aligns with your personal goals or values as a homeschool family, go to their website, listen to their podcast. They have so much information out there that is completely free and accessible so that you can see whether or not you want to even try to use anything from this. Okay, so right at the top of the website, you will see a couple of tabs. The main one that we're going to be looking at is download free curriculum, and they have it nice and bold in red, very easy to find. So we're going to go into that, and here you can search by keyword, you can search by subject. So these are all of the subjects that they have free resources for. So they have a biography series, classic literature. They have their history and geography, which is known as CKHG. There's kind of acronyms for all of these things. They have their language arts, so that would be CKLA, Core Knowledge Language Arts. They also have a mathematics and a science program. I actually can't say that I've seen anybody using their math program as of yet. I should probably check it out one day. I just haven't. Most of the time, when I'm seeing homeschoolers use core knowledge, they're going to be using the CKHG, so the history, geography, or CKLA. That's what I have experience using, which is the language arts. And then the CKSci, which is their science resources. You can also search by grade level. They also do offer some resources in Spanish. It's a limited selection, but they have that option. You can search for English or Spanish. So like I said, all these resources are grade level. So they go preschool all the way through grade 8. If you wanted to see what exactly is taught and covered in each of these grade levels, maybe you're trying to see how can I fit this in with other curricula that we're using. Maybe you just want to avoid redundancies like we've already covered the Civil War. I don't want to cover the Civil War again. You can go to this tab at the top, Our Approach. You can click Core Knowledge Sequence, and you can actually download the K through 8th sequence. And this will literally tell you every single topic and skill and subject that are covered in each grade level. So this is a fantastic resource. You can download it for free. You can reference it as much as you need to. You can print it if you want to keep it in a hard copy on hand. Okay, so going back to the free curriculum, this is where a lot of people get really overwhelmed. Let's say that you want to see what they have available for second grade. It is a lot. A lot, a lot, a lot. 6 pages worth. And so if you were coming on here and you're like, I just want a second grade curriculum, like I want it in one book, I want open and go, this is not going to be that. The way that core knowledge works is they split everything by unit, and the unit will tell you how long they expect it to take to cover that unit. Usually it's anywhere from a few days to a few weeks. Additionally, remembering that this is a public school curricula, they are expecting that you're going to have multiple units going at once. So you would have a language arts unit and a math unit and a science unit and a history unit and so on, all going simultaneously. And so maybe you're doing, a 30-minute block for one subject and then an hour block for another subject and so on. Personally, I don't think it is necessary or even possible to try to get through all of the units for a particular grade level as a homeschool family. It's a very in-depth curricula. They're covering a lot of content, which is fantastic. I'm all about spreading the feast of lots of different content areas. But realistically, especially if you're teaching multiple kids, multiple grade levels in your homeschool, you're probably not going to be able to use all of the core knowledge materials for a particular grade level, especially in the early years where your child does need so much of that one-on-one teaching. It might be overkill. So don't come in here and expect, oh, I need to download all of these and use all of them. You don't at all. So notice in these second grade language arts units that you have skills units, and then you have these domains. So here's the difference. From pre-K through second grade, core knowledge splits up your language arts units into domains, which are covering literature, stories. They might be covering historical content or scientific content, but they're still focusing on language arts. So you are reading about that content and then you are writing based on that content. Those domains are divided from these skills units The skills units are focusing on foundational literacy skills. So phonics, reading, spelling, that kind of thing. Now, once you hit third grade and up, you are no longer having two tracks of language arts. Everything is merged. Because by third grade, they're expecting that the child is going to be a fluent reader. So they don't need that additional unit, that separate instruction just for reading, handwriting, spelling, those basic literacy skills. From third grade on up, they're really focusing more on things like composition, vocabulary, literary elements, so things like figurative language. They're getting more into those in-depth, advanced language arts skills. So just keep that in mind. The language arts units are going to look a bit different from pre-K through second and then third through eighth. So here in this skills unit for grade 2, if I were to download this unit, it's going to have vowel flip books, consonant flip books, spelling. It has additional supplements for ESL teachers or special education teachers. So these are great resources for kids who are really struggling with learning how to read. I would say if as a homeschooler, you're already really satisfied with the foundational reading program that you're using, maybe you're using Logic of English or All About Reading, or maybe you're using like Hooked on Phonics or any number of these programs, you can definitely skip these skills units altogether, in my opinion. So it says for this second grade unit 2 for our skills, we are learning 5 new vowel sounds. We're practicing spelling for each sound. There's also going to be grammar lessons on nouns and proper nouns and some tricky words. So let's take a look at what this looks like. When you download one of these skills units, you're going to get all of these files. So you are going to get an assessment and remediation guide. You're going to get the actual readers. So these are books that are designed for the students to read. And so these are stories that are decodable based on the particular phonics skills that have already been covered. You'll see that the text is rather large. They've underlined some of the specific words or parts of words that the lessons are focusing on. And they do have some really great illustrations in here as well. So if you don't have a foundational reading program, this is a great resource. I did not use Core Knowledge to teach my kids how to read, but I could see how this would be a really great resource for that. So for this particular unit, in a classroom setting, remember that, they're expecting a teacher to work on this for about an hour out of the day. And then the rest of the day, you're going to have all those other simultaneous units going on. As a homeschool family, those rules do not apply, but it does give you a frame of reference as to how long they are expecting some of this to take to cover, as worksheets are included for most stories, and they're going to have comprehension questions and activities based on what they read in those stories. There's take-home material. Again, this is designed for a public school. So this is like the homework pages. You can just ignore those completely. It tells you what materials you might need. It tells you how to assess students' skills and performances. Pausing point. This is something you're going to see a lot with Core Knowledge. They have these pausing points spread throughout every unit across all subjects and grades. They're basically periods that they have scheduled for review and assessment. So you wouldn't be teaching any new material. You are pausing and really reflecting on the material that you just covered in the previous unit. Then we go into our lessons. They're going to give you a clear list of objectives for each lesson. They're going to give you this at a glance. What is this lesson actually made up of? You have a little warm-up session. You introduce a new sound. You introduce new spelling. Then they actually break down each of those steps. So for the warm-up, it says it's going to take 10 minutes, and it gives you exactly what to do for that entire warm-up. and so on for each step of each lesson. So this is super comprehensive. It's obviously very structured. You're also going to get in that downloadable file a workbook. So these are what the worksheets look like for the skills portion of language arts. Again, this is first grade. They do have a little bit of writing and composition. They have some comprehension here. Because they are already in black and white, it's very affordable to pick and choose and print these at home. Let's take a look at the other part of language arts. So not the skills, but the actual literature and content. So in grade 1, they are covering fables and stories. They also have some language arts units that are going to go along with what they're learning in history and geography. So they have this whole unit for American independence, unit for frontier explorers. They're doing some ancient history here too, early world civilizations, early American civilizations. And then we also have some scientific content in the language arts units. So they have one on the human body. One important thing to note with core knowledge is they always have multiple strands of history happening in the same year. So they're always covering some sort of American history. And then in that same grade level or school year, they're covering some type of world history and geography. If you're going to be studying history in chronological order, you could come in here and pick and choose the civilizations, the time period, based on what you want to do in chronological order. And so you'll see how these kind of play along with each other. So they have domain 11 for language arts is frontier explorers. In history and geography, they have this exploring the West unit. So they play together. The language arts content units and then the more specific history and geography, they're meant to go together. They're covering the same content. It's just one is specifically just history and geography, whereas the other is using that content to teach language arts skills. In grade 1, they also have a language arts unit on astronomy, animals and habitats. So that's scientific content that they're using for language arts. History of the earth. It looks like you're probably going to get into like some paleontology, archaeology, stuff like that. And then they also have fairy tales. So I'm actually going to show you a unit that I personally used. I have used this grade 1 early American civilizations. So this covers the Maya, Aztec, and Inca. And then I will start opening up the files that it comes with. Now, your read alouds are actually in your teacher's guide. All of the text is there for you. So here in lesson 1, we're talking about the Maya. It tells you how to introduce the read aloud, and then it even tells you what images to show when. So it's very, very scripted. So it tells you what to ask students and then what to say. Long, long ago, people did not have grocery stores, and very long ago, there were no farmers. Nomads hunted large animals. Insert, we show the picture of the buffalo. Obviously, again, it's designed for a classroom setting. I'm sure they're imagining that the teacher is going to be reading from their scripted teacher's guide, and they're going to be projecting these images in the front of the classroom. So that's how it's set up. That's how it's arranged. Now, how do you modify that for homeschool? What I did is I would actually be reading our read aloud through the teacher's guide digitally, and I would have these images prepped and ready to go on my computer, and I would just show the kids the images when the teacher's guide cued me to do that. These stories are really well written. I really appreciate how the units build on each other. You are, of course, covering historical content, but you're also getting so much rich vocabulary and background knowledge that they're going to keep building on and coming back to. So that's basically what these units are. It's reading stories. These are generally fictional stories. Some of them are nonfiction, but they're going to be covering content. So the story is based in historical or scientific content. And then throughout the story, you are teaching vocabulary, comprehension, etc. So again, we're seeing that split of language arts between the skills strands and then the more content-based units. You also have the option of buying these products already bound and printed and having them sent to you. If you go to their bookstore, if you do the homeschool set, they're basically sending you 2 books for each unit, and you get to purchase those units individually. We've already looked at the language arts portions. Let's look at some of the literature that they have available free to download. So they do have a biography series and a core classics series. These are by grade level also, and it looks like the only ones they have for free right now are for grades 3 through 5. However, I did see on their Instagram that they're still in the process of updating this website. So I'm sure in a couple of days there's going to be a lot more available here, because formerly they did have free downloadable biographies and classic literature for grades 3 through 8, I believe. So let's take a look at this biography series, Voices in History for grade 5. It says these books are suitable for readers age 8 and up. So these are the biographies they have available for grade 5. And they do make an effort to be inclusive and diverse as far as the people from history that they're featuring. Their core classics are abridged for young readers. They're fully illustrated. So this one does have black and white illustrations, which makes it even more affordable to print if you decide to go that route. You could also just upload these to a Kindle or a tablet and have your child have some more reading digitally. If you go to the top and click curriculum, you can actually get an overview of each of their subject areas. So they talk about how CKLA and CKHG are designed to complement each other and take that interdisciplinary approach, that cross-curricular approach. And they also talk about their core classics and how these are suitable for reading aloud in upper elementary grades or for independent reading once your child's able to. They're recommending like middle school age, but the core classics that I've seen, I would say like 5th grade, 6th grade and up. If we go under science, they also have a blurb there that talks about how the CKLA content units go along with what the kids are learning in the science curriculum. So it's all very cross-curricular. Taking a look at the science curriculum really quick, I've heard really great things about core knowledge science. I have not myself personally used it, but again, it's by grade level. It's generally by theme, so you can totally pick and choose which units you want to cover. And it looks like it's really comprehensive. I mean, they're really covering it all. So that's really cool. If you're looking for a science resource that's free, definitely check these out. Same thing with the math. I mean, it looks like it's really comprehensive. It's divided by grade level and then by unit, just like the rest of the program. Another great thing that you can purchase through their bookstore are art resources. These are really beautiful, high quality prints of gorgeous works of art that they have assigned as picture study in their curriculum. I've purchased these before and I was very impressed by the print quality. So that's another thing to look out for on their website. They just have so many resources, both free and paid resources. So definitely go on their website, look at the bookstore, look at the free curriculum, just kind of get familiar with all of the offerings that they have. If you decided to use core knowledge for all of your subjects as your sort of main curricula for science, for history, for language arts, etc., they're covering so much great content. There's clearly a lot of research that went into the preparation of this curricula. It just seems really, really solid. You are going to have to tweak it and modify it just a little bit to make it easier to implement in a homeschool setting. I have not found that that's very difficult to do. Honestly, it really comes down to omitting things versus having to change things, if that makes sense. Like, I'm just skipping areas that don't apply to us. So if they're talking about splitting the classroom into small groups, I skipped that. How can I modify this activity to work for us? So let's talk about the specific ways that I have used resources from Core Knowledge. I've only used their language arts program. In the early years, where the language arts are split into the skills strands and the content domains, I have used both. I really love the decodable readers in the skills strands. My kids really enjoyed them. They enjoyed the pictures, they enjoyed the stories. I really appreciated that things like comprehension questions and vocabulary were all included for me. And I also really liked pulling from the student workbook pages just to have some free, easy, black and white printables that helped my kids to practice those decoding and encoding skills. With the content units, there's a couple different ways that we've done that. I have covered content units with both of my girls together just as an additional supplement to what we were covering in our history curriculum. So we would read the read alouds together, we would discuss the vocabulary, we would do any activities that I felt like I wanted my kids to do. We definitely didn't do all of it. And then the last way that I've used Core Knowledge is to sort of beef up lessons for my oldest daughter and add additional independent reading for her. An example of that is this year we have been covering medieval history as a group subject. So with my 4th grader and my 1st grader using History Quest Middle Times. In Core Knowledge, they cover medieval history in grade 4. That's perfect. My oldest is a 4th grader. In Core Knowledge, in language arts for grade 4, they have an entire unit for Middle Times, and they also had a separate language arts unit for King Arthur and the Round Table. So I got those units and I really honed in on just the student readers. Just looking at the table of contents in the student reader, I can right away identify that a lot of the content they're covering in this nonfiction student reader is the same or is closely aligned with the content we were learning in our history quest lesson. But it's written at a level for independent reading for 4th grade. So I put those student readers on her tablet, and as we came across subject matter that I knew was covered in that reader, I would assign her to read the related chapter. So when we read about Chaucer in History Quest, she had 2 chapters in her reader that were abridged versions of some of the Canterbury Tales. That's easy. I can just assign her to read those as independent reading. And then how deep we go from there is really just up to me and up to her. At this point, I often will just have her sort of orally narrate back to me what she's read. I may look in the teacher's guide and see if there's any key vocabulary or activities that I would like for her to do that correspond with what she read in the student reader. But oftentimes I don't even do that. Oftentimes I just have that supplemental grade level reading for her. And that's been great, just using it for that. My younger daughter doesn't need more information than what we're already covering as a group, but it serves the purpose of giving my older daughter something a little bit deeper and more age appropriate for her to chew on. When we were covering Norse people, the Viking age in History Quest, I went to Core Knowledge and they have an entire language arts unit for the Viking age in grade 3 language arts. So again, I took the student reader, put it on my daughter's tablet for her to read independently. I went through the teaching resources of that unit and looked at vocabulary and composition activities. And I literally just cherry pick. I just pull what looks appealing to me or what I think my kids will benefit the most from. And I'm just using everything digitally because that requires the least amount of work and $0 from me. My main advice with using Core Knowledge, if you're nervous about how you're going to implement something that's designed for public school, or if you just feel overwhelmed at all of the options, just download a unit. That's the best advice I can give. And that's the quickest way that you're going to get familiar with how the curriculum works, with how things are organized. Just pick a grade level, pick a subject, pick a unit, and download it. And start looking through the files that come with that unit. Once you get familiar with how the teacher's guides are laid out, you're golden because they're all basically laid out the exact same way. So let's talk pros and cons. Obviously, a big pro lots and lots of free downloadable resources and curriculum. The con to that could potentially be printing costs, so just keep that in mind. I actually think of it as a pro that everything is divided by unit. Even though it can seem a little overwhelming with all of those individual units, it actually makes it a lot easier for me to pick and choose what I want to cover, what I want to pull from, what can I use as a supplement versus what can I use as sort of a main spine. A huge pro is just how many subjects and how many content areas they are covering. You have history, geography, science, math, language arts at your disposal. They also have a music curriculum and a visual arts curriculum that you can pay for those resources. The big selling points for me are that the curricula from Core Knowledge is fully secular. They do use science of reading practices in their early literacy levels. And although they are not perfect when it comes to diversity and inclusivity, they definitely make an effort to include lots of voices. Take that with a grain of salt. I'm definitely not saying that this is the least whitewashed option out there or that it's the most inclusive. I do feel like they at least make an effort to have positive representation outside of the Eurocentric scope. So that's a huge plus and a huge selling point for me. A con is it's going to be written for a classroom, so you're going to have to modify how you implement it in a homeschool setting. Some people are going to view that as way too much work. For me personally, I feel like it's really just a process of looking through it and omitting things as I go, and it hasn't been very difficult. Once you get your first unit downloaded and you start reading through it, it starts to become almost like second nature because all of their resources look very much the same. So once you figure out how to parse through one unit, you've really kind of figured out all of them. I definitely plan on continuing to use resources from Core Knowledge as content-rich supplements for free in our homeschool. I also plan on downloading some of their biographies and classic literature. Now that my oldest daughter is at an age where she can read those independently, I'm excited to have her try those out. I really hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions at all, please drop them down below. I've also put a couple of links in my description boxes for some other mamas and other resources that might be helpful in getting you started using Core Knowledge, especially if you want to use it as more of a spine and a main curriculum versus how I use it, which is as a supplement. Also, if you've used Core Knowledge, specifically if you've used their history and geography or their science components, let us know what your experience was like. Let us know what you liked, didn't like, loved, didn't love in the comments below. I'm excited to see what other tips and tricks might be shared. As always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.